This video is for anybody who is currently trying to grow out their gray hair or considering it, and you just want some inspiration, tips and tricks, and just to know more about the journey. So a little bit about myself. I am currently 31, will be 32 this year, and I found my first gray hair when I was 17, which I have talked about on this channel previously, back when I had darker hair and I was reviewing like a spray to cover it up. I wouldn't recommend that product, but I digress. In 2017, I was just inspired to stop dyeing my hair, and I made it 8 months. That was when I had brown hair, and I went through a lot of different changes with my hair, trying to like get it to a brown that I liked, and then a kind of like a burgundy phase, which was really cool. But then I was looking for a more corporate job. I just felt insecure about going through the interview process, having like these visible roots. I thought that people might judge me and think that I like don't take care of myself properly if I can't even do my roots, which is not a good way to think, but that was my thought process. So I decided to go back to a brown, which is my natural color. And then, I don't know, something just struck me at the end of that year where I just wanted to dye my hair blonde again. I kind of flip-flop between like browns, which makes me feel more like myself, and then I just have this, I don't know, this desire to just be blonde sometimes. Fast forward to February, I had some roots growing in, and I just thought to myself, well, I am bad at dyeing my hair. And the thing about me is I don't like to go to hairdressers, so I always do my hair myself, which, not that great at it, but it saves me a lot of money. So the thought of like trying to bleach my roots and match the blonde, it was too much. And I thought, hey, this might be a perfect opportunity to just try to grow out my natural hair color again. I was just tired of dyeing my hair, tired of feeling like I have to dye my hair, because it used to be fun to experiment with colors, but then when you're constantly worried about your roots and trying to cover them up, it just gets old. And also there's the factor of thinking like putting bleach on my head for the rest of my life until I reach an age where I'm comfortable with gray hair. It just seemed like very unhealthy and something that I just don't really want to do anymore. A year later, here we are, and you might think like, wow, that's it? Like, but apparently the average person only grows ½ an inch of hair a month, and I measured this out with a tape measure, and it's about, some areas were like 6.5 inches. So if you go a full year, you should have 6 inches of hair growth if your hair grows at a normal pace. I haven't done anything to try to increase the rate of growth or anything like that. I've just been letting it do its own thing. So this is where we're at. If you can see under here, there's a lot more. Maybe I'll come closer. I'll give you a full view here. And if we see under here, there's a lot more kind of gray, silver, white than in some areas, which is cool. Like, it's cool to grow out your natural hair and see what your patterns are, because I've been covering it up for so long I didn't even really know what it looked like, but I like it now. I think it's cool. I have like a really white streak over here too, which I really like. And yeah, depending on how you part your hair, whatever day, it just looks different. It's cool. I'm gonna start just going through the months and explaining how I felt during those times. So the first month is really easy because you only have like such a tiny amount of root that's showing, ½ an inch, right? And I am lucky in the sense that through growing out my hair more, I realized that my hair wasn't as dark as I remembered it being. Like, I thought my hair was kind of like a medium dark brown, but if you look at it mixed with the gray, it's actually like a pretty light color. Like, it kind of can pass as a dirtyish blonde when I have like blonde ends, so that gives me an advantage in the sense like it's not as dark of a contrast, and it's kind of easier to hide, I would say. Some people haven't even noticed that it's gray. So yeah, the first month is easy. I'd say the second month is when it starts to get hard, because anytime you're in a phase where it looks like you're just not doing your roots, a lot of people are pretty judgy about roots, which I have always thought was strange, but they're like, ew, like, dye your roots, girl. Not that anyone says that to me, but you know, you see that kind of stuff on the internet. That is a phase you have to worry about, but they have great products. For me, up until I'd say like when my roots were about here, I would use a brow or an eyeshadow. They have products that they make specifically for this, but I found that eyeshadow was nicer because I could mix and match my own colors and kind of like just use like a taupey color if I wanted to add more warmth. The problem with my hair was when I first dyed it blonde, I couldn't really get a very ashy cool tone. I was just doing it myself, and like you can't strip all the color all at once, right? So it ends up being pretty warm at the beginning. So I would have to try to match my roots, which you can see are more ashy, with the rest of my hair, which was more of a golden blonde. So I would mix more warmer tones, and I would just, you know, fluff it through my hair, kind of paint it on with a makeup brush, and that was how I concealed my roots. And it looked good, and it worked for a really long time. I'll show some pictures up here. But when you get to a certain point, you just really, you gotta embrace it, because it's difficult to, like, you imagine like trying to put powder all the way through this. It's just, it's too much. And I'd say the root sprays, they only work for like, I wouldn't use them for, they're sticky, so like I wouldn't want to use them for this. Like I would do it for a little bit, maybe like 1 to 2 months worth of roots, because I have experimented with those and I just don't think that they're the best product. Because yeah, your hair just feels sticky, and if you have so much, like if you have roots up to here, it's gonna look like you just spray painted dye in your hair, right? So that's where I was at with that. So just try to make it through. If you can make it like 4 or 5 months, you're really in the clear, because at that point you've really kind of embraced it and people know what you're doing. Like it's obvious that you're not just, you didn't touch up your roots yet. It's obvious like you were, that's your natural hair color and you're growing it out. So that's what I would say there, is just hang in there, really. You just gotta go through it. And it is more difficult when you have darker hair, I will admit that, because the contrast really is there. When I had darker hair, I'll show some pictures, you could really tell that my hair was gray. Like, it looked gray. But having this blonde color, it feels much easier for me to walk around with this color, and I don't ever feel self-conscious about it. So if you have darker hair, you really just got to embrace it and just go all in and be like, this is what I want for myself. I am not dyeing my hair anymore, and that's it. You just gotta ride it out. At the point where I stopped using eyeshadow to change the color of my roots, that's when I really tried to match the ends of my hair, which is really difficult. I would really recommend that you go to a professional hairdresser to do this. Don't try to do it yourself. My hair is so dry and damaged at this point. But I kind of just would bleach it here and there, just try to get a little bit lighter and tone it. And it never really got to a great tone that I liked, but it was okay. I dealt with it. The last time I dyed it though is where I feel like I really got somewhere that made me happy, and that was using a silver kind of dye. And the way it washed out, it started off a little blue looking at first, but the way it washed out was really nice, and it gave me more of a cool tone that I wanted, like you can see in these pictures here. Now, I haven't used any purple shampoo lately. Honestly ran out. So this is where we're at. This is a year later, and I'm really happy that I've continued with it. Because the first time, the worst thing is when I think about starting this in 2007 or 2017 is that I could just be done by now. Like 3 years of hair growth, I could totally be done. That would be awesome. And so if you think about it, like this is about 6 inches, so by this time next year, I'll only have maybe about here of my natural hair color. So it just takes a really long time to grow hair, so the earlier you can start, the better. So now I'm going to go over some tips that I have for anyone who's going to go through with this process. Don't try to match your own roots to the length of your hair. It's impossible to do. You want to grow it out a little bit, a few months, then go to a salon and ask them to try to color match you. And if you have darker hair, they can probably add in some nice highlights that kind of like, you won't have like a really harsh line of demarcation. If you don't want to do that though, all the more power to you. Like, just fully embrace it. And you save a lot of money that way too, so. And then the problem is, if you're trying to match like a different color than what you have down here, you could, while you're dyeing, accidentally like, you know, dye over some of your natural regrowth, and it just delays the process even more, right? It takes more time. Just go to a professional, trust me on that. Mistake number 2 is thinking that you can rely on wigs. I went through a phase where I just bought a lot of wigs because it was just something that was kind of, I mean, wigs have always been around, but I feel like a lot of different people within the beauty community and videos were wearing them. So it just seemed like something that was so easy and fun and effortless, but they're not. Unless you are a pro at wearing them, or you wear them all the time, it's really difficult to think you can rely on wigs while you grow out your hair. I mean, to me that sounds like the ideal situation. Like, you could just braid your hair, wear a cool wig every day, and no one would ever have to see that you're growing out your natural hair color or your roots. Like, I get it, it sounds amazing. But I just found that I could not wear a wig out of the house. Like, I felt like everybody would know that it was fake. And unless you buy a really expensive one, you don't look realistic. Now when I'm on the train, going to work, I can always spot someone who's wearing a wig. Like, you can just tell by the part line especially, and even there are lots of tutorials on how to like pluck the part, put makeup in it so it looks like your scalp color and all that, but like, because it's such a hard process to get down, I wouldn't say that a wig is a good option unless you really know what you're doing. Okay, so another thing that I came across is semi-permanent dye. I thought that if you want to use a semi-permanent dye, that sounds like a really good option, right? Because it's going to wash out. Problem is, they don't ever really wash out, in my experience. There was a time where I dyed my hair this really cool burgundy color, and that was the last color that I had before I decided to dye it, like for job interviews and whatever. And I loved that hair color because it faded really nicely into this like lilac purple that mixed with the brown. Like, it didn't look very good, like from a professional standpoint. If someone saw it, like who does hair, they'd be like, but I really liked it. And I would actually get compliments on it at work. People would like see my roots. Actually, all the time people complimented me on it because like the gray streaks that I have would pick up the color more, and it would almost look like it was highlighted that way. Except for the ends never matched, and it really didn't look that good. But it was fun and it was easy to do. But that's the thing I'll say is, like, it was impossible to ever get that burgundy color, the lilac color that was left behind, to fade. So it's like you're restarting the process every time you dye your hair. You dye it and it fades, and then you have new root growth that comes in, and then it doesn't match the stained ends. So it's just, I would really recommend you stay away from semi-permanent dyes, just because unless we're just talking about the lengths and not the roots, like, just don't try to put it on your roots because it will not wash out, unfortunately. So this one is personal preference, but I would say don't cut your hair short just to speed up the process. If you want to cut your hair short, go for it, buzz it. Like, I thought about that so many times too. It's like, what if I just buzz it and start over and just go with it? Like, if you feel like doing that, all the more power to you. But don't do it just because you think it'll speed up the process. From what I've read, like, I did some research into this before because I was thinking about it, but from what I've read, it's actually harder to grow out really short hair because it goes through awkward phases, so it kind of needs to be finessed a little bit more by a hairdresser to get it into like a shape that you want. So you're actually going to lose more length, which will take longer to actually grow it out in the long run. So me just staying with my straight kind of like long hair, I've just been like cutting it here and there. I cut it myself, that's why it looks bad. Like, okay, I get it. Yeah, don't think that a buzz cut or a pixie cut will solve all your problems and make everything grow out super fast, because it's not the case. Another mistake you can make is just forgetting the reason why you're doing it. I mean, if you're a little bit vain like me, it's easy to lose motivation when you start thinking like, do I really want to age myself? Because we're in a very youth-obsessed culture. Like, people in their 20s are getting Botox and like fillers and lip injections to everyone just likes to be plumped up. It can be difficult to, because I always thought like, oh, I'm never going to stop dyeing my hair. I don't want to look old. But then I just thought, well, wouldn't it be cool to just look like me? Like, look like the natural version of me? I mean, saying this with a full face of makeup on, but like, it just seemed like a cool idea to know like what my actual hair color is, because I couldn't even remember. Remember why you're doing it. Don't let vanity get to you. I mean, if you really hate it, you can always just dye over it. If you grow it out for a few years and you're just like, oh, you know, I miss hair dye, then go back to it. But like, why not see what your hair could actually be like without the dye? So some really good reasons to remember when you're going through this is just like saving money. If you dye your hair lighter because you have a lot of grays, then you gotta go through the process of bleaching your roots. It's a lot of money to spend, especially when your hair starts growing in. Like, gray roots on dark hair are so visible in such a short period of time. And I found that for me, like, when you see the kind of like gray mixed in with a darker color, it almost looks like your hair is thinning in a way, which I also did not enjoy. So I think it's just easier to embrace it, really. So yeah, you'll save money. Another thing is you're reducing your exposure to toxins, which we all know that unless you're using a natural hair dye, like the chemicals that we're putting on our scalp, they can't be good. Like, there's no way to argue with it. Like, it can't be good to bleach your head every month. Like, it just can't be. So that's a good reason to keep going as well. Also, I kind of touched on this before. It's just like embracing your natural beauty. Like, embracing, if your hair is prematurely gray, that makes you really cool and unique. I love it when I see a lot more women actually letting their roots go nowadays. And every time I see it, I'm like, yes, you do that. I'm doing it too. It's cool to kind of like reverse that beauty standard that we have, that women have to look young, and once they're not young anymore, they're just, you know, washed up, tossed aside. So why not fight against that double standard? Whew, I made it through. I haven't talked that much in such a long time. Haven't filmed a YouTube video in forever. Apologies for the lighting. I'm in a basement, so there's no natural light here. But yeah, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with any of you about growing out your gray hair. I'd like to encourage you all. Yeah, any questions for me, leave them below. And if you want to subscribe, that would also be cool. Alright, thanks for watching, and don't forget, don't just make up your face. Make up your mind too, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh! I actually am out of breath, like, ugh. I'm parched.